first age, in the first battle, when the shadows first lengthened, one stood.
Okay, I'm not going to sugarcoat it, the Doom games are awesome. There's just something about them that just hooks you in and makes you feel just as badass as the Doomslayer himself. Speaking of which, the Doomslayer. This guy is one of the coolest characters in fiction. Barely utters a word, kills demons every other day, and that's all there is to him. Or is it? I know there's already plenty of video essays out there explaining the lore of the games and the personality of the Slayer in full detail, and believe me, I know how tempting it is to sit on your couch, food in hand, and put on one of those videos. However, I also know your time is probably precious, so I'm going to save your time by condensing it to a viable length. I will preface this video by saying this video is not exactly a summary of the plot of every Doom game or any of the lore, but rather an analysis of Doomguy's character. If you want a summary of Doom's lore that's around this video's length, check the video in the description. It's severely underrated for its quality. Anyways, strap in, like and subscribe, and let's begin with the first Doom. Okay, so back in the classic Doom days, there was more to the story than killing demons and mourning an innocent bunny, and more personality to Doomguy. Prior to the game, Doomguy was a Marine on Earth, but he assaulted his superior officer after being ordered to fire on innocent civilians. Because of this, he gets punished by being sent to Mars, where the United Aerospace Corporation is doing teleportation experiments. And because this is a sci-fi shooter with a corporation involved, bad things happen. The base on Phobos sends out a distress signal, and Doomguy leads a combat force to take care of the problem, but Doomguy ends up being the only survivor and ends up having to fight his way through hordes of demons. Now, despite not speaking, Doomguy does have some personality, all shown in his face in the status bar. When he picks up a gun, he grins like a kid getting the Christmas present he's wanted for years. When he gets hit, he looks offended and even shocked. He's constantly doing the rock eyebrow raise left and right without making any kinds of remarks. He even grits his teeth when decimating demons, even when he's bloody and oh, geez, that's not a good look. Rinse your mouth, dude. Anyways, the most well-known moment is at the end of the game, when he realizes that the demons have already invaded Earth and killed his family and his pet bunny Daisy. Now, yes, I do think the death of his rabbit drove him to slaughter demons to a certain extent, but I don't know why people think it's his only defining character trait. Either that or the idea he only cares about killing demons and nothing else. There's more to the guy, which we'll get to in a second. I mean, he technically avenges his bunny in the 4th episode, but no one really pays attention to that for some reason. Anyways, after that, Doom 2 happens, where Doomguy's objectives get a little more elaboration. Doomguy goes to the now destroyed Earth, which is infested with demons left and right wherever he goes. However, the humans that have survived the massacre plan to use spaceships to run away into space, and do so after Doomguy clears a spaceport, leaving Doomguy as the only human on Earth. And he is content with that. That's something people forget. His first priority will always be saving humanity. He was content to stay and die on Earth as long as the survivors are free. That's so unbelievably awesome. However, things don't go the way he thinks, and the humans in space contact him to tell him that in Doomguy's own hometown, the demons have set up their base there. After going to the city and making his way to the base, he realizes that the only way to stop Hell is to go to Hell, literally, and goes through the portal. Doomguy manages to get to the biggest demon he's ever seen, the Icon of Sin. Chained to a wall with his brain cut open, he fires boxes from the hole in his brain that spawn demons continuously. To fight him, Doomguy runs back and forth to the platform that goes up and down, getting onto it and firing rockets into the exposed brain. And through sheer will and determination, he kills the Icon of Sin. It manages to devastate Hell as Doomguy prepares to return home, thinking that repairing and rebuilding Earth would be more fun than it was saving it. At this point, Doomguy has survived extinction-level events with nothing but his willpower and an arsenal of mass destruction. For Daisy, sure, but also because deep down he's more heroic than people think. I would go as far as to say he's one of the greatest examples of a hero out there, which we'll get to later down the line. But that's pretty much all the personality of the Slayer for the classic Doom games, and let me tell you, it gets way more complicated soon. But first, Doom 64, what I consider the weirdest entry in the franchise for a number of reasons, but that's not important right now. Following the previous 2 games, the UAC's research facilities are quarantined due to radiation and stuff. However, a message sent from an old-as-hell satellite says that an entity called the Mother Demon escaped detection because of the radiation and has resurrected the demons that were once long dead. Meanwhile, Doomguy continued to have nightmare after nightmare about the demons, showing that despite his victories, he continued to suffer from the events of the previous 2 games. But because of the Mother Demon rising, Doomguy, as the only survivor of the events of Doom and Doom 2, is given the task to wipe out the demons and kill the Mother Demon, because even the UAC knows damn well no one else would fit the job. So he goes there and ends up going to Hell again. This is where his rage, his bloodlust, begins to take hold of him. This is where Doomguy slowly descends into madness and brewing hatred for the demons. He has no care for being pulled into Hell once more, butchering and slaughtering any demon in his wake. Eventually he gets to the mother demon and manages to kill her, ending the madness. Doomguy knows he can never live a normal life again though, so he decides to stay in hell for humanity's sake, to ensure no demon ever rises again to threaten Earth. This is both because he's a hero deep down and because he really hates the demons. Understandable, to be honest. This is shown through the splash text saying things like, you cackle at the familiarity of the situation, let them taste their guts, you smile, and all that. Originally this would be where his story ended, but unfortunately for the demons, his crusade was far from over. Okay, at first I was going to talk about the overall plots for both 2016 Eternal and the latter's DLCs. However, especially in Eternal's case, that would stretch the hell out of this video, and I want to make this as focused on the Slayer's personality as possible, so that's what I'm going to do while lightly touching on the plots. It'll still probably be long though. In Doom 2016, a crazy long time after Doom 64 and presumably whenever Dark Ages takes place, Doomguy went from being an ordinary marine to the singular thing that every demon fears. It got so bad for the demons that they had to have a whole temple brought down upon him, then had his armor removed before being sealed away in a tomb. That is, until Samuel Hayden found him and brought him to a UAC facility on Mars, where his protege, Olivia Pierce, had made a deal with the demons that involved them being unleashed upon the facility. Hayden would then free Doomguy, now known as Doomslayer, as a last resort to stop them from destroying their work, leading to the opening of the game. One thing I think 2016 does better than Eternal is how it tells a story while staying in first person the entire time, which showcases the Slayer's true personality while not having cutscenes with multiple cameras, or even dialogue from the Slayer himself. He seems to know his way around the UAC technology fairly well, looking through damage reports and all kinds of screens, and he also, though in fairly small ways, is expressive in his emotions. The way he almost lovingly dusts off his helmet, the way he at first tries to do things Hayden's way, but realizes how much more time it'd take if he did and how dangerous Arjun is before deciding to destroy the UAC's work, the way he looks at a corpse in the elevator as Hayden claims that everything was for the good of humanity, then smashes the screen, how he hesitates before destroying Vega, and ultimately chooses to make a backup of him, and of course, how he fist bumps his little collectible toy when he finds it. This all perfectly demonstrates how the Slayer truly is without using a single word from him. He knows that Hayden and the UAC's utilization of Argent is a hopeless crusade, having lived through this more than once before, but he doesn't lack compassion, far from it. He's not doing this just because he hates the forces of hell, but also because he's trying to protect humanity from going through the devastation in Doom 2 again. While this is a good way to show his personality through storytelling, I think Eternal also does a good job when it comes to subtlety. Now look, Eternal's story may be a mess, what with a lot of the lore being stuffed into the codex, but I don't think it harms the Slayer's character directly. Eternal takes place around 14 years after 2016, where Slayer now has a fortress of doom that floats in space, and where a lot of his inner character is on full display. Now, obviously, there's a playing with himself, wait a minute. I mean, there's him messing with his own toy, however, unlike the previous game, it isn't relegated to just that. No, because in the fortress, he has his own man cave, with tons of stuff expanding on what he likes. He has an entire toy collection of himself and every enemy type. He's just like me for real. He has his guns all hung on the wall displaying his firepower. He has a few guitars as well, with one being a Crucible guitar for some reason. How did he even... You know what, it's better not to question it. He also has magazines with all sorts of topics, a shelf of books with the original 2016 toy on top, multiple comic books lying around, a skateboard referencing Tony Hawk Pro Skater, and of course, a seemingly custom-made painting of him and Daisy. Fun fact, in real life, this was a piece of fan art made on Reddit that got into the game. In universe, I'd like to imagine he got a commission or something since it's him in his 2016 suit. Speaking of which, smack dab in the center of the room is the original Praetor suit, dismantled and hanging at a workstation. The suit was actually made by a demon known as the Wretch for the Slayer, so I imagine that in Eternal, the new one he wears is a modified version of his previous suit, but made in his personal taste. So of course he had to show off his massive biceps. In front of the workstation is, oh my god, he's got a gaming setup. Of course he has a gaming setup. He even has a special chair, a bunch of folders and videos on his laptop, a pizza box and bag of chips lying around, the album of 2016 soundtrack along with a record player, and an old ass computer that can play the original 2 Doom games. But something I find very interesting is something hidden away. Under his gaming desk, you can find a torn photo of a woman and her child with a third person, presumably the father, having his face being ripped off. This has been confirmed to be the Slayer's family by Hugo Martin, which adds a whole layer to him. The demons didn't just kill Daisy, but his wife and child as well. Man, it's always a wife and child, huh? The ripped part of the photo is likely Slayer himself, implying that he has so much guilt over not being able to save them that he tore himself from their family picture as if he believed he didn't deserve to be included any longer, knowing this was his last memory of them. The idea that he also kept this from the first Doom game up to now is honestly kind of sad, especially since it's under his desk and not even framed or anything. But it's also a show of how he doesn't let these hold him back. Even when he was going insane in 64, he used it to make himself stronger, more deadly, more powerful, more fearsome for the demons he would slaughter. Or maybe I'm reading too much into it, you tell me. Now, originally I was going to talk about the plot for Eternal, but like I said earlier, it's going to stretch the hell out of this video. And I realized pretty quickly that the plot of Eternal is essentially people telling Slayer he can't do something, and then he does it anyway. Like,
you cannot stop the procession.
And then he does it anyway.
You can't just shoot a hole into the surface of Mars.
And then he does it anyway. And it's just like, I don't really know what there is to talk about. That being said, there are a couple moments I thought were worth mentioning. When the BFG 10,000's controls are locked and he just aggressively taps the button like a little kid. Or how he's not like actively trying to harm the humans in any way. Like when he's trying to pull the key card from that one guy and he doesn't actually try to choke him, but he's choking him because he's extremely strong. And then of course the intern, who, yeah, the intern is a whole character in itself. But Slayer doesn't actually have like any meaningful interactions because, you know, he doesn't really talk like at all, but I like to imagine Slayer kind of respected that someone wasn't afraid of him for once and was actually willing to help. Also, when he's about to kill Samur, I like that he hesitates, because even though he was kind of a dick to him, the two did work well together and did put a stop to the invasion more than once. Now, one of my actual favorite moments is at the end of Ancient Gods 2, when he defeats the Dark Lord.
Tell me, have you nothing to say to your creator before you strike him down? No.
Just that single no uttered in defiance of his creator after he strikes him down, by the way, it's just so badass. All that happened before, all the suffering, all the death, all the chaos, it's finally over. At least until Bethesda needs money and they bring Doom Guy back.
Am I really gonna defile this grave for money? Of course I am!
But yeah, that's pretty much it for Eternal. And now for Dark Ages. Now, I wanted to talk about Doom the Dark Ages here, but I don't want to spoil too much or anything since the game is still relatively new by the time this video is supposed to come out. However, that being said, there is one specific moment I wanted to talk about before the end of this video. The main enemy of the game, Prince Azrek, prepares to surround and destroy the Sentinel forces to get what he wants. While Slayer's master, Creed Maker, is told that they will be overrun, he chooses not to help them out of fear and cowardice. But then, Slayer hears the screams, not just of demons, but of the innocent lives that will be lost, killed, thinking back to the millions lost in his original world. Through sheer willpower, not willing to let more innocent people die, he breaks free of the Maker's control. Not just out of hatred, but out of the need, the responsibility to protect those who can't protect themselves. That's all I want to talk about when it comes to Dark Ages, but mostly because that was my favorite moment in the game so far. Okay, with that, I've talked about pretty much everything I've wanted to. I love Doom, I love Doom Guy, and that's pretty much it. I hope you guys enjoyed this one, and please like, subscribe, and share this video around because I worked really hard on it. Have a good day, and remember, rip and tear until it is done.